This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Welcome to People Tech, the podcast of WorkforceAI.news. I'm Mark Pfeffer. Today, we're going to get into AI in small business. It feels like we're just beginning to hear about how SMBs are taking advantage of AI, even though they care less about AI, so to speak, as they do about results. They don't have big technology budgets or big teams, but they feel the impact of technology in ways that are notably direct. Today, I'm talking with Erron Stark, Vice President and General Manager of ADP Small Business Services. We'll get into the heads of small business people to see how they approach AI and how AI vendors can approach them on this edition of People Tech. Hey, Erron. Let's talk about small businesses and let's talk about AI and small businesses. Are small businesses going at AI with the same, let's say, enthusiasm or the same energy as larger companies?
It depends on where you're at in the journey, right? So you have a couple different flavors of small business owners. You have, some of the newer generation entrepreneurs that they've just grown up in this environment where this feels like it's second nature to them. And, I've used this example recently where I have a 12-year-old daughter and she just put together a presentation recently to convince my wife and I to buy a dog, which we now have. And she did this all on her phone. So in a couple of years, she's going to be, the next wave of small business owners, which she actually has the aspirations to open up her own bakery. And, I think that there are just certain technologies when you think about content creation, you think about the websites that are being designed today, you think about these amazing videos, these Hollywood production quality videos that are circulating today that previously a small business owner could never afford. Now, you just see them all over the place. And I think that younger generation or those that are technology savvy are starting to incorporate that a little bit faster. Then you have others that it's how does it fit into my business model? How is this going to help me continue to deliver a really good service or experience or, enhance the product that I'm delivering to my clients today? And I think those are the interesting conversations that, how they're weaving it in, what they're looking for, because AI doesn't always have to be in this really cool creative sense of, whether it's content creation or a website. It can sometimes be hidden behind the scenes, but it's empowering productivity for the business.
How much are they thinking about AI as opposed to a particular solution to do a particular thing? Put another way, does AI really matter to them, or are they thinking more about what the end result's going to be?
That is a fantastic question. It's part of how I've been trying to articulate to many people that are asking this question, because AI and Gen AI is the buzzword. But for your average small business client that is trying to go out there and provide for their family, roof over their head, food on the plate, and deliver a great product or service to their clients, they're just trying to figure out how can I be the most efficient organization possible? And if that comes in the form of AI and Gen AI, great. But if that's more, how do I start to streamline my back office and leverage certain technologies? And I've used the example of take a retail shop that currently has staff that's on the floor and they're punching in to get their day started, and they're getting paid hourly. I have to then take that information and then input that in as a business owner, or I have to employ somebody that then takes that information and plugs it into payroll, then takes that information from payroll and plugs it into an accounting software. And then potentially I'm using some semblance of a POS system, right? So I have all these different applications. That's just a few to mention, in this conversation. Imagine a world where it was one system, one input that then transferred all that information seamlessly without having to worry about all the rekeying errors. That to me sounds like a way more efficient way to use technology and doesn't necessarily have to be AI per se.
What about sort of messaging to them? I'm trying to get at what's important to them. Everybody who's selling AI or everyone who's developing AI talks about efficiency and cost savings and all of that. Those are big hot buttons for small businesses. So I would think that they're listening to that, but are they listening more to that than they are to the AI piece? They're focusing on the end result, or are they really thinking one begets the other?
In the conversations that we're having with clients today, Mark, I think it's more the efficiency piece, the effectiveness piece, if AI is a part of that, and having the right consultants. I think this is instrumental in many of the conversations, whether it's an advisor or a CPA. We tend to see a lot of our small business clients lean on those subject matter experts to help guide them to what is the right technology for my business. And those partners are the ones that find the organizations like an ADP that then has the applicable technology that they refer to their clients to not only purchase or try to work on acquiring the technology, but the second piece of this is, how do you activate it? How do you implement it? Because you can go on Google and open up the fire hydrant and then purchase or spend all the time and money to bring the technology into your organization. But if you don't know how to activate it, if you don't know how it's actually going to yield those efficiencies and the effectiveness that it can bring to your business, then that's probably not the most appropriate way for you to go about doing it as a small business client that doesn't have teams of people that are staying at the forefront of what all these emerging technologies can bring to their business.
What about in terms of AI and the workforce, whether that's talent acquisition or workforce management, scheduling, payroll, whatever. Here again, I think a lot of small businesses are caught up in all of the discussion of AI, but are they using it in any interesting ways, do you think, for dealing with workers and dealing with candidates?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this may not feel as obvious as it relates to AI, but I'll give you an example where we had a client recently, it was a restaurateur. They were looking to hire, frontline staff, and they wanted to know in their respective jurisdiction, their respective state, like, what's the appropriate wage for me to pay this employee? And also, like, what's the going tip average or the average rate of pay for a tipped employee in this particular state? And we offer our clients something called a compensation benchmark, which with a click of a button, this now aggregates and anonymizes over 40 million employees across 10,000 different jobs in 1,000 different industries across all 50 states, where now within a second, I can have access to that information. So I, as a small business owner, I am now going to offer a competitive wage to this employee and ensure I'm not overpaying, which could affect my margins. At the same time, I'm not underpaying, which could affect, getting quality talent within my business. So that may not seem, again, going back to that like whole content creation, what a lot of people assimilate to AI or Gen AI, but behind the scenes, you're using similar technologies to take advantage of these massive data sets to enable me with a click of a button to run my business more effectively, to activate talent, like you mentioned before, in the workforce.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
You know that feeling when someone shows up for you just when you need it most? That's what Uber is all about. Not just a ride or dinner at your door. It's how Uber helps you show up for the moments that matter. Because showing up can turn a tough day around or make a good one even better. Whatever it is, big or small, Uber is on the way. So you can be on yours. Uber, on our way.
One of the things I think about a lot is whether or not what we're talking about right now really matters to the small business. Again, going back to this idea of them being more interested in the solution than the actual way that they get to it. So you have to be out there talking to small businesses and people to sell to them a lot. How do you approach that? How do you sort of convey the value of all this?
It's really just asking them the right questions and making sure that we understand the needs of the business. Again, going back to that earlier point about where they're at in their journey. But if I am a small business owner and we engage with them, as you mentioned before, we have a pretty expansive sales organization, multiple distribution channels, whether it's online, we have a digital sales organization, and then we have our field sales organization. So however it is that we're meeting the client where they want to be met, our job is to just ask them, how are they planning for some of these things and what resources do they currently have available? An example of this tends to be around, a recent trend with tax credits. There are so many clients that are out there today not taking advantage of. Last year alone, there was $20 billion worth of research and development tax grants that any business, whether you're a small business or a large business, could apply for and then potentially acquire to reinvest back into their organization. Only a third of that mark, only a third of $20 billion was actually leveraged. Think about it. Most large businesses, again, they have teams that are aware of these opportunities and then have another team that goes through the application process. So most of the companies that are missing out on these opportunities are the small business clients. So we actually have technology that enables the small business client, after we ask them some of those qualifying questions, to automate that application process, go through that journey where last year alone, ADP helped the small business community take back $1 billion of that 20 billion to reinvest from an R&D standpoint into the small business community.
Now, I know your job is really focused on small businesses and vendors to them. But, stepping back, ADP is a big company with a big range of customers of various sizes. Do you think a company like ADP is able to leverage the needs of one audience to serve another? In other words, do you think, better positioned because you have such a range of clients that you can more quickly address the needs of one market out of sync with the needs of another?
I mean, I probably sound biased, but I've been with this company for 20 years. I've actually worked across a multitude of our business segments. And I do think it's one of our biggest differentiators and something that we can take the intelligence from our national account organization, our international organization. We operate in 140 different countries, and scale that down to our mid-market clients, and then take that and scale it down to our small business clients. The difference is, again, where those clients are at in their journey. Even some of our mid-market clients are not necessarily operating at the same level or have the same needs as a large client. But when, with all these emerging technologies, I think what I've seen change is now they're scalable. Now, all of a sudden, a small business client can actually take advantage of and leverage certain applications that 20 years ago, that was only found in your enterprise space.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the cool part, is as we evolve as an organization, as we start to invest, which we are heavily into AI and Gen AI, we're creating this continuity across the entire spectrum, where it really does create almost you're almost codifying the payroll HR language across the entire spectrum. So I, as a small business owner, I don't need to be a subject matter expert in payroll. One of our new features that we're launching to the market is something called ADP Assist. And that's where you as a client can ask you can ask the application a question, And you could ask it in your native language. Like you could ask it where, as a small business owner, I didn't wake up on a Tuesday when I started my business hoping to be a subject matter expert in payroll and HR. But now you can ask a question how you normally would think about it, and the system can understand it, translate it into our domain, and then give you back content that you can consume and take action on. Like that's something where if you were an enterprise client, not to belabor this, but you have payroll teams, you have HR teams. A small business owner didn't have that, but now you're kind of synthesizing that across the entire community, which is cool.
Do you think it helps the small businesses compete with larger businesses in terms of things like recruiting, finding the right candidate, hiring the right candidate? Um, I mean, it seems like this would give SMBs a much more sophisticated platform than they had before, but also a platform that's not that different from what the big guys use.
Yeah, well, it's similar to what you were saying before around, the scalability of a small business client or how they're using this technology and whether or not it's found in, your large business clients, and are we using that to empower a small business client? And even these technologies as far as how you define AI a couple of years ago, before like this craze of AI and Gen AI really started to dominate the headlines, we partner with a company called ZipRecruiter, and they leverage a lot of those same applications or the same architecture, where they're able to tap into this vast job pool. And for a small business client, as opposed to, again, your larger competitors that may have talent acquisition teams, this tool built into our Run application can enable a small business client to find a quality candidate within 24 hours. And previously, if you were to go on to all of the different job boards and have to do that yourself, I mean, a day might be aggressive. It could be weeks, if not months.
Small business people, in my experience, are pretty smart. I mean, I think they get kind of labeled as not so sophisticated, but they're really experts in the business that they happen to be in. I wonder though, do they find all of this talk of, advanced technology and AI and Gen AI, does it intimidate them? Does it keep them from doing anything about it, or are they charging forward because they see opportunities there, or they see solutions there?
I don't think it would be fair for me to sit here and say that in general they're fearful or intimidated by the technology, because every small business owner is different. However, what you said before I think is important to recognize, which is every small business owner tends to be an expert in their field, right? Whether that's a restaurant owner, a daycare owner, I own, retail shop providing, XYZ good. The reality is when they got into business, they had a passion for that particular product, service, and they're always interested in making sure that they do two or three things. Number one is, how do I provide that best product or service to my clients? How do I make sure that I have the right talent within my organization? How do I engage them? How do I develop them? And then how do I become successful? And success means different things for different people, as I'm sure you would agree, Mark, where
Mhm.
that can be making a lot of money, that could be spending more time with my family, and you can, span the entire gamut there. But if there is an opportunity for a small business owner to enhance the way in which they accomplish those three tasks, the small business community is a pretty resilient community. I think the last couple of years have shown us that. And we have found that if there is an opportunity that exists, they will find it. The speed in which they'll go out there and incorporate it into their organization, I think it just depends on where they're at in their journey and some of the competencies that they have. But the cool part about a lot of these new technologies, they don't all come with this really thick instruction manual, right? It's not that difficult for you to go out there and start to incorporate it. And many of them are super intuitive, where it's just built into the product. So I think it's just having the confidence that it's changed, and you don't necessarily need to be a subject matter expert in AI and Gen AI to then be able to take advantage of it as a small business.
When you talk to these people, are there common themes, or let me ask it this way: what do you think are the most common concerns they have about implementing AI?
So we don't tend to hear their concerns about implementing AI per se. It's their trend or the trends that we hear around technology, again, it's which technologies are best for my business, which ones can fill a need or streamline certain parts of my operation so I could focus on what I do best. The other trends tend to be around the people side. And again, there are technologies that can even help out with the people side, whether it's what I mentioned before around, how do I identify certain tax credits that are available? How do I scour what benefits are best suited for my employees, which are the most cost efficient? There are technologies that you can actually take advantage of as opposed to implementing a particular group health plan when there are individual plans in certain states that are significantly less expensive. And then the last one is around compliance, right? So you have the technology trend, you have the people trend, and then the last one is around compliance. And last year, Mark, there was 170 different legislative changes that a small business owner has to contend with. So if there is technology that could also just keep me up to date and make sure that as I focus on whatever my craft is, that there's a tool or a partner that can help ensure that I'm insulating myself from risk, but also taking advantage of some of those opportunities where the Secure Act was one of them. If I have employees that, they feel valued when I can give them a certain type of benefit, one of those is a retirement vehicle. One of the legislative changes was the Secure Act, which means that if I offer a retirement vehicle, I can actually get a tax credit back for my business. But these are things that, if your atypical small business client is not usually top of mind for them. So having a partner, a advisor, or a product that can help you based on the profile of your company surface up these opportunities to you that puts money back into your business, enables you to keep your people so you can go out there and focus on what you do best. I mean, that's the story that we get excited about. That's where we tend to make an impact, or what we see clients asking questions around.
Erron, thank you very much. It was great to talk with you. Hope you'll come back. Hope we can do it again.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And if anybody's looking to learn more, if they go to adp.com/grit and wisdom, that's GRIT and wisdom, WISDOM. The reason why I give you that last piece is that outside of all the best practices that I just shared, or some of the conversation around different tools and technology, we actually had 18,000 small business clients give their best practices in a contest that we ran recently. And we captured all those sentiments on that website too.
Great. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
My guest today has been Erron Stark, Vice President and General Manager of ADP Small Business Services. And this has been People Tech, the podcast of WorkforceAI.news. We're a part of the Work Defined podcast network. Find them at www.wrkdefined.com. And to keep up with AI technology in HR, subscribe to Workforce AI today. We're the most trusted source of news in the HR tech industry. Find us at www.workforceai.news. I'm Mark Pfeffer.